Welcome back to Nebraska Farmcast from the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm Ryan Evans. The price difference between steers and heifers can be a key indicator of herd expansion or contraction, and recent trends indicate that we may be at a turning point. TaraLee Hudson, a graduate researcher in the Department of Agricultural Economics here at Nebraska, and Dr. Elliott Dennis, associate professor in the Ag Econ department, have published a new article analyzing factors that are driving the price difference between steers and heifers. They're joining me to discuss that and insights into herd expansion. Thank you both for joining me again.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so why is there typically a price difference between steers and heifers?
Yeah, so steers and heifers generally discount in terms of market value because heifers tend to finish at lower weights and they're less efficient in the finishing phases, and generally they're just discounted because of that and they finish at lower weights.
So what can the price difference indicate about markets and herd fluctuation?
The steer-heifer price discount really tells us, how much demand there's going to be in the market for heifers to be pulled forward by feed yards. For example, from 2016 to 2020, that steer-heifer price discount really stayed steady, about $15 a hundredweight. And so, but as we started to kind of expand the herd, we're holding back heifers for retention. That price has climbed from about $15 to all the way up to about $35 a hundredweight. Now it doesn't vary; it's not the same across the different weight classes. And what we tend to observe, which we show in the article, is that at lighter weights, it's the steer-heifer price discount is larger, both nominally, so in dollars per hundredweight, and in a total percentage of the price. So, for example, in 2024, to show you how much this has changed, the steer-heifer price discount for 500 to 600 pound was about $35 a hundredweight. On average, the 10-year average and the 5-year average was about the same, about $24 a hundredweight. Compare that to the 800, 900 pound price discount where we were at about $13 a hundredweight on average over the last 10 years, and now it's up to 21. But when we look at it from price or percentage differences, that was only about an 8% increase for the 8-9 weights compared to about 11%. So this does vary as we go through the cattle cycle, and it varies pretty considerably by weight.
What's the big picture nationally?
From the cattle cycle kind of dynamics, it's pretty much the same. The same thing that we're experiencing in Nebraska as far as herd expansion is happening both in Nebraska and in other places. The key difference is that the steer-heifer discount is not going to be the same depending upon where you're at. And that really reflects local market demand for both steers and heifers. For instance, if we're in Kentucky, that steer-heifer price discount is going to be different compared to here in Nebraska. So always important we provide these for what it is in Nebraska, but each market's going to vary, and each year will vary as well.
Great. And your article specifically mentions approval of the Experior feed additive. Could you just explain that and how it might impact how heifers are valued?
Yeah, so in November, Elanco's feed product or feed additive Experior was approved to be fed with MGA, which is melangestrol acetate, which is a feed additive that is commonly fed to finishing heifers to suppress estrus, and initially thinking that this could impact how the market values heifers because it has also been shown to increase hot carcass weights and increase live weight as well. So obviously it takes some time for the market to react to changes like that, and it has been approved for steers, but it's just recently been approved to be fed to heifers in combination with MGA. But as we continue to monitor, it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts to that.
What exactly is Experior, the feed additive?
Yeah, so it's actually very interesting. Experior is a beta agonist and what we would consider to be a repartitioning agent. And it's interesting because it's actually labeled for reducing ammonia gas emissions.
When you're looking at current data, what does that suggest to you about where the cattle cycle is headed right now in terms of herd expansion?
Yeah, when I think about, Experior and its use, I think it's really going to change kind of the feeding dynamics of how quickly we're going to pull cattle forward, and also how it's going to affect the steer-heifer price difference. So when we think about kind of that demand to pull cattle forward to fill feed yards, and we can feed them more efficiently with Experior, which can be fed with MGA, then I think we're going to see even that price, Steer-Heifer price discount kind of change pretty dramatically.
And so what factors should be considered when deciding whether to retain heifers for breeding or selling into the feeder markets this year?
Yeah, so I think that the Steer-Heifer price differential kind of acts as a signal to producers and what they should do, whether they should retain heifers or push heifers into the market. And right now, when we're seeing record level price differences, that kind of acts as an incentive to hold heifers back. But again, there's a lot of other considerations that a producer has when deciding if they're going to retain to maintain or retain to expand.
Yeah, every time we make that decision not to choose a heifer into a cash value market, that we are essentially buying that heifer from ourselves at that value. And so when we think about the value that heifer then needs to produce in calves through its lifetime, that's essentially its cost. It's fixed throughout however many calves that it gives to us. And so knowing, not only is it, should we retain because there's high value and potential higher cattle prices in the future, but knowing that every time we choose to forego that value, we are essentially buying it from ourselves, and then that heifer needs to pay for herself. So as that price goes up, so does the burden on her to continue to pay for herself in higher value calves, and not just selling her after 5 or 6 years. So we saw a lot of producers kind of get in bad shape as we retained or bought heifers or bred cows at really high prices in 2015, and now we saw massive amounts of culling happen over the last 2 or 3 years. But a lot of those cows that we were culling, we were holding on to because they needed to pay themselves back because we bought them for such high prices the last time we were up in 2014, 2015. So just keeping that in mind, there's lots of tools out there that we can use to say, like, what is the value of the heifer, and for instance, some of the stuff that we produce at the University of Nebraska, like what's the value of the heifer, what needs to go right as far as number of calves and future calf prices. We have that on our website at cap.unl.edu. There's also other tools out there, but knowing that it's just not, there's value out there, but what needs to go right, and I think sometimes more importantly, like what can go wrong if I'm choosing to retain heifers and not to sell her into the high value market that we're experiencing.
Great. Well, I want to thank you, TaraLee Hudson, Graduate Research Assistant, and Dr. Elliott Dennis, Associate Professor here in the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Department of Agricultural Economics. And you can find this latest article that they have written on our center's website at cap.unl.edu to dive more into the Steer-Heifer price difference and implications on herd expansion. Thank you both.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.